Hey, Rick Sayes here. Welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Biz podcast, where I hope to provide entertaining conversations with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz to get their stories, tips, strategies, productivity tricks, and ideas that you can apply and take your career or business to the next level. This episode's featured advocacy group is the California Wilderness Coalition. Cal Wild is a nonprofit whose mission is to protect and restore the wildest landscapes and watersheds on California's public lands. Since 1976, Cal Wild has helped protect over 14 million acres of wilderness and 1,500 miles of wild and scenic rivers. The organization helps bridge the gap between local stewards who know their public lands intimately and the state and federal agencies that manage those lands, forming valuable partnerships at all levels. When you become a member today at the $65 family level, they'll send you a copy of Tim Palmer's book, California Glaciers, for free. Join today at calwild.org/biz. The episode that you're about to listen to is with Marty Hiester. Marty and I worked together at Adventure 16, where he was VP of Wholesale. He also held roles with GSI, founded Peak 62, and is now in sales, marketing, and product development with Omega Pacific. Enjoy.
Hey guys, today we're speaking with Marty Hiester. Marty and I worked together at Adventure 16, where Marty was VP of Wholesale. He's also held roles with GSI, founded Peak 62, and is now in sales, marketing, and product development with Omega Pacific. Welcome to the show, Marty.
Thank you, Rick. I look forward to getting on with this wonderful cast. Great to be here with you.
It's quite the cast, isn't it?
It sure is. You've just done a tremendous job. I need to take a second and congratulate you. This launch of the Outdoor Biz podcast has just been tremendous. Pulled together a real quality program for sure.
I appreciate it. Thanks. And why don't we start with your background? Tell us a bit about your background. How did you get started in the outdoor biz? Was Granite Stairway Mountaineering your first outdoor industry job?
It was. My first exposure to the outdoors, Rick, was scouting. I'm proud to be an Eagle Scout, and right away at 11 years old, I was in a great troop where backpacking was the focal point. Boy, I had a shelter half, a canteen, a mess kit, and a yucca pack.
Nice.
And really learned the basics of the outdoor skills, and that I wouldn't be here today without that.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So you're one of the few guys. It's funny how many guys from A16 I've spoken with who were in scouting, but not that many were Eagle Scouts. I was surprised at that.
Well, I really thrived with that program. I enjoyed everything about the outdoors that it taught me. And just a few years later, fast forwarding to high school, I was lucky enough to graduate from high school a little bit and do an elective program, co-authoring a book called The Trails of the San Rafael Wilderness with one of my instructors there, Ray Ford.
Nice.
And so right away at 17, I was hiking all of the trails of the San Rafael Wilderness behind Santa Barbara, and I happened into an outdoor store to refurbish myself, get some supplies, and that was Granite Stairway Mountaineering. The two owners were talking there that day, and they were looking to hire someone. And, man, I jumped at that opportunity. The next day, Rick, I was rolling Gold Line and repricing the Spaya stoves from $11.50 up to $11.95. I'll never forget the first day. So,
right on. And how long were you there?
Let's see. I did a stint there of 6 or 7 years. Oh, wow. Granite Stairway grew to 4 retail stores kind of during the heyday back there in the 80s. Right. We had locations in Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, the San Fernando Valley store, which, as you know now, eventually became an A16 store, and we kind of inherited from Jim and Greg Thompson at Wilderness Experience. Okay. And then we had a masthead store in Berkeley as well, where kind of the headquarters of the outdoor industry, if you were, was there at that point. You had North Face, you had Snow Lion, you had Sierra Designs, Marmot. Virtually everybody was in the Bay Area at that point, as you know.
Right. So, and then from there you went on to Black Ice, is that right?
Exactly. What happened in our retail exposure in California is we moved on to Black Ice, which was kind of after the Snow Lion product. I did a great launch there with friends like Jeff O'Keefe that you've already spoken to, and we had a super line of tints, packs, sleeping bags, and it was a great time, and soft goods, and it was a great time to go nationally. It definitely took me from a California retail guy to getting a lot of great national exposure and a lot of super exposure at launching a company.
Interesting. Yeah, I think my first sleeping bag was a black ice sleeping bag.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We did
how long? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We did some real innovative stuff back there then for sure. And black ice was a real formative time, learning a lot about manufacturing overseas, learning about cut and sew. I've been really lucky during my career, Rick, to both get cut and sew in on a couple of stints at Black Ice and later on at Adventure 16, and also to work with a lot of metals and plastics in fabrication. So overall, I feel like, wow, how lucky am I to work with all these different types of companies and with these different methodologies in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, that's huge, learning the plastics and all those other things. I had experience with cut and sew, but nothing else. So that keeps you well-rounded. And then from Black Ice, you kind of, that whole Black Ice business got bought by A16 or morphed into A16? What was the connection there?
I like to tell the short of the story this way. Black Ice ran from 1978 to 1983, and it was owned by the two retail corporations, Granite Stairway Retail with our 4 stores, and then also Adventure 16, who had stores in Los Angeles and San Diego. So these two retail corporations, if you will, jointly owned Black Ice and Granite Stairway Wholesale at that time. And what ended up happening is the two retail firms parted ways, and Adventure 16 ended up inheriting the wonderful Granite Stairway Wholesale division that eventually became Adventure 16 Wholesale that I went down to San Diego to run from 1983 to 1990.
Right. So there was a connection. I didn't realize that. And so you're there from 83 to 90, and that wholesale business grew significantly. I mean, you guys were making all kinds of things, including the Ditty bags, and the WTR jacket was my favorite.
There was some magic about the timing there, Rick. Liberty, or maybe Eiger Mountain Sports, as they were called back then, was kind of struggling. They were having trouble to get orders out the door in more than 4 or 5 days. And we saw an opportunity with the wholesale distribution to offer same-day shipping. Anybody that called in by noon, that order was going to get out the door that same day. And we evolved to really hundreds of brands, thousands of products, and indeed thousands of outdoor specialty shops across the country very, very quickly. Those were just fun, quick-growing, and all-absorbing years. I remember during that time, the whole wholesale crew, we literally would be packed on a Friday night to head down to Mexico on a catalog shoot or a wonderful weekend rock climbing. And many times we wouldn't get back in the car till Monday morning to scoot back to our desks and be ready to roll again. Some of the great memories about those years for sure.
Yeah, those are great times at A16, even on the retail floor, doing the outings and whatnot. We had a ton of fun back then.
Well, you've discussed before with others what a magical time that was at A16, because between the retail division, our wonderful factory, and the wholesale division, we just had a group of folks there that who would have thunk it that they today could be such influencers in the outdoor industry.
Right.
And that magic moment was all happening right there for sure.
Yeah, it was awesome. So, and then you migrated to Design Works of Tahoe. What was that like?
So after I did a nice stint there in 1990, I moved to Incline Village to Lake Tahoe to start a full-service digital agency for the outdoor industry. I had several real neat clients back in that days, CMI, Kenyon Consumer Products, Catadyne, and I sought to establish an agency in the mountains where literally folks could fly in their products, we could shoot on location, produce using the new technologies at the time. Back then it was good old Aldous PageMaker, if you will, and did a lot of pre-press work, giving the complete package to many wonderful brands in the outdoor industry. I did that through 1996 when one of my clients, GSI Outdoors, had an opportunity up here in the Spokane region. And there again, seeing a vision of taking GSI to this gourmet cookware company that it is today was something that I worked and started on with the team there, and was at GSI for about a 7-year stint until 2004. Working with metals and plastics was just so much fun during that period. And we had another division, really a gourmet division, that we would go to the gourmet show with. And that gave a lot of influence about bringing more traditional housewares and gourmet items back to the outdoor industry. A good example of the hundreds of products we had like that might have been something like the Java press, where it was very simple to take a glass product that was out there in the housewares market and make it durable for backpacking, give it a little removable handle, and truly give people the ability to have a wonderful French press cup of coffee out in the woods.
And so was the experience there what caused you to launch Peak 62?
Maybe and maybe not. Where Peak 62 came from was, I guess, this core, Rick, of a lifetime dream that I didn't want to retire too late. I saw folks ahead of me that waited until, like my father, their 80s to retire.
Right.
And then you just don't have enough energy to go around and do all those things on the bucket list.
Right.
And so I always had in the back of my mind, oh, I want to retire by 50. And that part of it, of course, in today's ever-changing world, didn't exactly come together the way that I had thought. But with Peak 62, I knew I'd always... What's that?
You're not alone in that.
And I know we've all talked about this a lot and thought it through. But with Peak 62, the forefront of that was that I wanted to wake up every day and do what I wanted to do, make my choices in business. So nice. In retooling it from a very duct tape approach, I wanted to use all my skills in photography and copywriting, in indeed sourcing new and exciting new products. For years at A16, we went out every year and searched for 300 new items that we could add to our line in the industry. Right. And that experience taught me how to buy a little bit better on that show floor, go a little bit deeper to dig and look for new items. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of those roots are what came together for me with Peak 62. But the biggest reward in all that was waking up every morning and just having all my priorities in front of me to go about in the way I wanted to do them and really run that company with that creative dream in mind.
Yeah, awesome. So you did that for a long time.
During some real tough e-commerce years from 2004 to 2015, the biggest advantage I had going for myself is I didn't get in a big overhead situation. I launched it, we call it a duct tape launch, right? And you're using your duct tape marketing, your guerrilla tactics, and putting all the marketing energy you've had into that kind of a launch is just so fun to see its response. And back in 2004, a lot of the tools were really allowed you to get in there real quickly to really expand. Peak 62 ended up being camping hard goods. I had about 80 brands in over 450 categories and learned a lot about SEO, about product demand. And you really learn what our consumers looking for when you get to work in that side of it.
Yeah, you get direct consumer contact. That's definitely true. And so now you're kind of doing all of the above at Omega Pacific, right? I mean, you're involved in sales, marketing, product, a little bit of everything.
Omega Pacific was a brand that Adventure 16 Wholesale first distributed back in 1984. I still remember the day when the Omega partners at that time came in the office and were seeking a new distributor from us. And I got to tell you, it's again about networking. Mm-hmm. A good fellow A16er, Michael Lane, had an opportunity there in sales and marketing. And it's about keeping your contacts up, knowing who you know. And to be back there now and involved in sales, marketing, and product development in the climbing niche is so much fun for me to relive that from years before.
Right.
I like to kind of have a mantra, Rick. I love to wake up let me try it again. My entire career, I've had the thrill of waking up every day to play with the gear that I love. Yeah. And that's just been so true from the very beginning that over this entire span, and I'm just starting the fourth quarter right now, to be honest, it's just been such a joy to wake up every day and play with these toys.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you and I have talked a number of times about photography. You're quite an accomplished photographer. How did you get into photography? Was it the wholesale A16 days at doing catalog shoots, or where did that come about?
Well, it would have originally started with my first guidebook. I took photographic and darkroom electives in high school, but it was really product photography when I first started doing catalogs at Granite Stairway. And I kind of brought out a stack next to my desk here. In 1978, I have the first black and white retail catalog that I ever did.
Wow.
And back in those days, there wasn't product photography available from a lot of manufacturers the way there is today. And it was more just, I had to get this tint out and get a shot of it this weekend and the pack in front of it and the cook stove. And it started to roll into product photography with outdoor backgrounds on location, becoming a real specialty for me.
Very cool.
A lot of catalog covers over those years. Of course, we were trying to cater the image of being in the outdoors and enjoying that lifestyle. And eventually it's evolved to where I am today. I still shoot a lot of studio and location work today, but today it's all about projects and passions. I just seem to get into little niches and go with a project. A lot of Adobe Suite work these days, a lot of my education revolves around lynda.com and keeping abreast of all the changes we have in all the Adobe Suite applications that really go beyond just photography, working with InDesign and producing PDF workbooks these days that are interactive, a little different than the pre-press days we had a few years ago.
Right, well, I can relate to that. That's this launching this podcast has tested my digital skills to the limits in some cases.
For Omega Pacific, I just did a great new 60-page PDF workbook this year, and it's made such a difference to be able to have that on your phone, to be able to bring it up online and zoom the photos and have all the specs there. And that's the living catalog. It's different than the old days where we would be concentrating our efforts on next year's catalog and publish it once. Now we can have ongoing pieces that are very informative and truly real fun to look at.
And all that content transfers over to all the other medias, right? I mean, the website, blogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you've set that database, then that can move out to your website. It can move out to your software backbone for the company, and everything's all in one place and organized.
Yeah, awesome. So, as you know, we've recently learned that the outdoor industry drives a significant amount of revenue and jobs, across the U.S. We're kind of a force to be reckoned with these days. And at the same time, we see a lot of struggle. Retailers are struggling. Some of the brands are struggling. What's your perspective on the future of the outdoor industry?
Like a lot of folks, I've been kind of waiting for the whole thing to come back.
Yeah.
I really believe that outdoor participation, like many sports out there, it comes and goes in cycles, like a Whammo hula hoop. This year it's hot, and next year it kind of takes a rest for a few years before it comes back to be a fad again.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. There's more people, recreating outside now than ever before. I mean, you see them on the trails, you see them in the fish streams, fishing. I mean, there's a ton of people recreating outside.
I totally agree with that, and we have more exposure than ever. We're the darling of Madison Avenue still. When you look at whether it's a beer ad or a promotion for various outdoor themes, people are kayaking, people are climbing, people are doing it online.
Right.
So I see our methods of distribution changing. I see a bit, as you have seen, of this recycling, if you will, of great old ideas from the 80s that are becoming a fad again.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that the who's going to build it and the way it's going to be distributed might evolve a little bit, but certainly this will continue. And I see a big resurgence out there at some point that really is going to kick this thing into gear. There was a day, Rick, that we had maybe 3,800 outdoor specialty accounts across the country.
Right.
That's going to recycle at some given point as the communities see more local participation. And that's exciting to think about.
Yeah, and it feels to me like some of the retailers that are, having success these days are recycling themselves back to a lot of the activities and services and things they provided back in the days when we were at A16. They're doing events, they're teaching, they're training, they're curating their assortment a little more tightly than they have in the past. What's your thoughts on that? I think that's the future of retail.
Exactly. That's the story where retail is successful, because you can't just go up online and buy a pair of hiking boots, for goodness sake, right? Going in and dealing with an expert over the counter, trying on a lot of different things, seeing what works for you, is that professional service that the retailers only are going to be able to offer.
Yeah.
And when you take that across the categories to a sleeping bag or a tent or a water filter, it's our outdoor industry's expertise that's going to continue to allow retailers to have this wonderful relationship with that customer.
Yeah,
you don't get that in every category, do you?
No, you don't. And I think we have the advantage also of resurrecting the outings type programs where we can teach people how not only to use their gear, but also how to, comfortably and safely, recreate in the outdoors on our public lands and not, destroy the wilderness and destroy themselves in the process.
I've seen the climbing guys, Rick, talking about that a lot, where there's so much growth and wonderful energy in gym climbing these days.
Right.
But how are those gym climbers going to get their first exposure to outdoor traditional climbing out on the rock? And it's a neat thing. I was recently down at the Red Rock Rendezvous, a wonderful event put on down outside of Las Vegas every year by Mountain Gear. And there's 1,100 passionate climbers, and I'll also insert wonderful people that come to this event every year from all across the country. And you speak to folks that got gym exposure there locally and that are now going out to learn to climb on the rocks and expose their climbing adventures in the outdoors.
Right.
So it's a neat thing to see that for sure.
And what opportunities do you see in the outdoor biz for young folks just starting out?
Well, the most important thing, I think, is that a lot of these companies, you get a chance to get exposure. Mm-hmm. As I look over my resume, I've been so lucky to work with such a diversity of companies and get so much exposure to so many great things. And one of the advantages of the outdoor industry is that people are friendly. I feel like when I describe our trade show, you and I know this, we see our tribe every 6 months. It's 100 hugs a row. It's not a normal industry, is it? It is a high school reunion.
High school reunion.
And I love that phrase. And because of that, if you love the outdoors and you have that passion built into you, get your foot in the door, learn all that you can, learn organizational skills, learn scheduling skills. People that can meet the deadline and get it done are the most valuable people in these outdoor companies today.
Right.
And as I mentor young kids, I'm getting to do a bit of that right now at Omega Pacific, just trying to teach them everything I've learned over these years to empower them to go take that next generation and continue this wonderful thing we started.
That's awesome. Yep.
So there's certainly a lot of emotions there for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what outdoor activities do you participate in?
Today, I would say fly fishing and hiking are my two main credos. I have this wonderful 4.5 mile loop right out my front door that I do, I'm going to say 3 days a week now, and share that with the dog. Fly fishing is, of course, at the top of the list. And a lot of times my outdoors end up being with my camera and tripod. I'm either take the upcoming eclipse, being out there set up and ready to shoot that eclipse at 10:30 and making a plan for that. These days becomes a big part of it. So all of that core just keeps with you. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about sports like hiking and fly fishing is we can do them all of our lives.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So
all those things. Yeah. And any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get in? Any starting points, or how do they tap into this tribe?
Get to the Outdoor Retailer Show. When I was 17, I didn't have my own way paid to the show, and I got my button gear and somehow got over there and walked that show, and that just injected me with the energy you can still hear today.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy at that show, yeah.
You got to get a start in retail. It's most important, as others have said on your podcast, Rick, to learn our customer. And the best way to do it is work in the retail floor. You're going to learn all the companies. You're going to learn the brands and their reps. So retail is definitely the path that you and I have seen that most folks get started and either move to repping or to working with a manufacturer over the years.
Right.
But
I think the retail start has morphed a bit. I mean, as we've talked on the podcast, I think everybody alludes to the fact that, get your retail start at a shop, at a store. But I think you could also get connected by, executing retail at an event. There's a lot of brands like Hydro Flask and other people that go to a lot of these consumer events. So I don't think retail necessarily has to be on the shop floor. It could be just somewhere where you interact with that consumer and get, super tight knowledge and understanding of the brand and educate the consumer. So I don't think it's any longer just on the shop floor.
Well, of course, there are no rules and no right way, but getting all the exposure you can. We have a small industry. We have 800 or 900 manufacturers, and if you can get that retail experience, if you can get to the outdoor retailer floor and just walk that show start to finish, you'll start to see categories and brands that enthuse you, and that might lead your path to where you head in this wonderful game.
Yeah, you get exposed to a lot of different things, right? And let's shift gears a little bit. How about any favorite books, or do you give books as gifts very often?
I don't. I'd have to be honest on that. And
everybody does.
It's brilliant. It should be done. But I reach to grab for something. I tend to keep several books on the nightstand these days and just go. And what comes to mind is a Tom Peters book that he actually wrote back in 1999. And it's called The Brand U50. Oh. And it's still very, very relevant because it talks about the coming changes that we're now in the middle of and really rebranding yourself with a new awareness and an acceptability of change, embracing it and making it happen for yourself. And it's a quick read, and it's just a few quick notes on things to consider that really shape the way that your management, that your leadership, and your day-to-day might go.
Yeah, cool. And we'll link to that in the show notes, so be sure to check out the show notes, folks. We'll link to all the stuff we talked about. So shifting from books, any other favorite tools, apps, podcasts that you use regularly, listen to regularly?
Well, my podcast list is actually pretty Macintosh and photography based. I love Mac Power Users, Mac OS Ken. The Candid Frame is an excellent artistic photographic. And I kind of religiously listen to Mac Break Weekly. To the lesser extent, the news, maybe the CNN or, listening to a podcast news broadcast cuts it down to 40 minutes and makes it getting your day a little easier. Yeah. But I want to mention something that I use audioly, maybe like podcasts, that's really changed my life, and that's lynda.com. I've just been so inspired to learn more, Rick, every day. And you and I share a lot of these thoughts when we speak frequently on the phone, is that lynda.com has not only taught me all about the quick changes in the Adobe suite, the Photoshop, the InDesign, the Lightroom, but it also has things in there like public speaking and podcasts. Right. And so there's just so much learning that can come from that. And I find I use it two different ways. Every once in a while, I'm working on a project out there in Adobe Acrobat, and I just don't quite remember how to do it. And you can look it up quickly, watch a 2-minute video and be done. And then the other times I want to learn how to do something new. And it's a great way to learn, to pop that up and listen to the podcast for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I use YouTube for that a lot.
YouTube is a great problem solver like that, for sure.
Yeah. And how about a favorite gear purchase under $100?
Well, I'm going to try to sneak two in here, the way guys always do in a podcast, darn it.
Okay.
But recently, I had the opportunity, of course, to walk the entire Outdoor Retailer show. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to mention a product that I didn't get to buy yet, but I was super excited about on the floor. And that was the Lifesaver Explorer water filter.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna roll out this fall for $89.
Wow.
And it covers 99% of viruses, bacteria, and cysts in a little portable pump model.
Oh, cool.
We've really traditionally had higher priced water filters that would do all that, and they weren't necessarily that lightweight, more expedition types. And so to see a product rolling out this fall at that price, it's going to be a great one. They can be found up at iconlifesaver.com.
Okay, we'll link to that.
But I want to sneak in one more, and that's my new Hydro Flask, a 40-ounce wide mouth with a straw lid. I got to tell you, Rick, it's my best summer weapon against global warming. We've had 8 or 9 days in a row of 90 degrees up here in the inland Northwest and are headed for 10 more. And man, you take that bottle, fill it half up with ice. It lives with you 24/7 wherever you go. what a pleasure it is during these conditions to always have refreshing water. It's
cool.
Those are a life changer. I'm sure you use one for your coffee as well.
Oh yeah, yep. We'll link to those two as well.
Cool.
Any other things you want to say to our audience or ask of our audience?
No, just to give ourselves one more last ballyhoo is that the outdoor industry is an incredible place with incredible people, and what a privilege it's been to work within it for so many years. And I'm excited to see that no matter where we travel, what we do as friends together, it's all culminated around these great products that we all love.
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate.
And I think just expressing an appreciation for that, I did that a lot at the last Outdoor Retailer show with friends about how lucky we've been to travel along this trail.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah. And where can people find you? On Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? What's your best?
I'm at Marty Hiester, MartyHiester, on most social, although these days Instagram is my favorite. And then my website can be found at martyhiester.com.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll link to all those things in the show notes. And thanks for the time. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
That was a lot of fun, Rick. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Very good.
All right. Thanks.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Marty Hiester. You can reach out to Marty on most socials at Marty Hiester. That's Hiester. And his website, martyhiester.com. You'll find links to all the info we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episodes/031. I appreciate the support and feedback. Please be sure and share, easy for me to say, share your favorite episodes on the socials. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. I've used Audible for many years now when I'm on the road. And I'm on the road a lot. Audible helps me pass the downtime while enjoying great books I discover or are recommended by friends. You can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I can recommend some if you need them. Hit that link and start your 30-day free trial with Audible today. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher, or go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Outdoor Biz Podcast, Twitter at Rick_Saez, that's Saez, and my email is rick@theoutdoorbizpodcast.com. Thanks for listening and all the support, and a huge shout out to all my guests, and until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.